Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about heaters for winter. So let's dive right into it. Now, first we have to understand the aspect of efficiency because, well, it does cost a boatload of money, and you have to understand heating in winter may not be a what we call luxury. It may be a requirement, meaning it goes from a want to a need. Because cooling room, because you have to understand, if a room has, let's say you did something there, and let's say you run a computer or laptop and it started to heat up, because again those do consume power and that heat is dumped into your house. It does heat up, and let's say you went to sleep, but here's that heat is continuously leaving your living space until sun starts to pour in heat again in the next morning. So meaning at midnight your temperature will be low, at the early morning it could be very low. So that does create a scenario where basically small children and elderly people could be at risk, and I mean serious risk. I mean something that you should take very seriously. So it's not what we call luxury, it's a need. So we have to think about efficiency first, because otherwise you will end up burning a hole in your bank account. And thankfully there is one good thing, that it is 100% efficient, meaning if you buy 1 kilowatt of energy, you will get 1 kilowatt of thermal output. No doubts about it. Like, don't even think about it. 1 unit of electricity equal 1 unit of heat. Don't even think about it. It's 100% efficient. However, coupling efficiency is not 100%, meaning think of it this way. If I attached a heater, basically let's say a blanket to you, and that blanket is consuming 20-30 watt, you will start to feel sweaty at 20-30 watts. At 50-60 watt, you'll like it's starting to burn me. So you will like, then why the heck we need kilowatts? That's the coupling efficiency part, meaning let's say instead of heating your whole car, if only the seat was heated, it will consume less power and you will be GG. So that's the whole thing. That's the part of coupling efficiency. Different radiators and heater design will have different coupling efficiency. So the electrical part, that is same in all of them. Theoretically output is also the same, but coupling efficiency, basically how warm you feel, that's the different part. And think of it this way. Let's say you have a heater that heats up the ceiling of your house. What's the point of it? You're not sleeping on the ceiling, you're sleeping on the floor, and floor is still remains cold. You're like, what the hell? So that's the whole part of coupling efficiency. You want very good coupling efficiency, meaning you should feel more, not the room, not the walls, not the ceiling. That's the interesting part of it. And wattage is the maximum power limitation. Basically, higher the wattage, more oomph it can provide. Do not go for the size. You may have like something, oh, this is very tiny, it is only suitable for a small room. No, that's a human psychology. But if it says like it's 1000 watt and they are not cheating, that means it's a 1000 watt system. And you may have something big and it still says like let's say 1000 watts. Both are same. Don't fall into that trick of like, that's a psychological trick. There is no need to fall for that. It's like, if it says, and if the rating is true, that rating is the final limiting factor, not anything else, not the size, definitely. So that's the efficiency part of it. So let's start with the simple room heater. The moment I say room heater, you will think something like this. Now you have to understand, it works on convection, meaning the elements, so basically electrical elements will heat up, they're gonna vibrate a lot, then air is gonna touch it, air is gonna vibrate, that air is gonna be forced, it's gonna keep moving other air molecules, and it's gonna keep circulation high. Now that circulation over time will reach you and you will start to feel warm. Basically the energy was coupled from heating elements to you through air. Now that's what we call convection, basically. Now it does have airflow. That's the most amazing part of these puppies. Because of the airflow, they can achieve very high thermal output on very small size, meaning you can have something as small as this and it can dump 1 kilowatt of heat continuously because of the fan. Now be very mindful, those fans are not there for convection, they are there for keeping the coils cool. These coils are generally or almost on melting point, almost at like self-damaging point of view. Generally good branded one will try to throttle it down, but consequence of that is that if they have a scenario where fan is jammed or fan is not performing optimally, you will have a coil overheating. It could short out, it could break, or it will shorten its lifespan. That is guaranteed. That's why the fan is not an optional part, it is a compulsory part. And that's why many of the branded ones generally will come with thermal cutoff, because again, depending on the coil quality, if the coil quality is very high, nicromium wire, high grade, that can withstand very high amperage for a very long time, then you don't have to worry about it. But most of them, cheap ones, are not. That's why fan is not optional, you have to turn them on. Or otherwise, like even if you turn it on, it will over time it will auto trip, because the air temperature, basically the coil amp draw would be very serious. Now the consequence of the fact that it's directly touching air through a coil is that air reacts, meaning think of it this way. Let's say how many electrical appliances you have in your household that smells. almost nothing unless something is reactive. For example, your iron or this puppy. Now this smells a lot because there is a lot of surface area where you have conductor which is heating like red hot in some scenarios. It's reacting a lot, that creates a smell. Now that reactants, basically things that are coming off of there, is not good for you. That's why it's like it's inherently unpleasant. Now again, some people can tolerate it, other people will get headache, other people could get seriously ill. So it's not something that every doctor will be like, yeah, buy as much as you want. No, this is one of those things that you have to be used in moderation because of the reactant part of it. And it does cause dry air, and which may cause very serious allergy reaction to mild reactions to most people. Basically most people are like, if you are using this for 1 or 2 hours, you don't have to worry. But if you are in a scenario you are running this let's say overnight, you will find yourself in a very unpleasant scenario. Again, your body may be tolerant enough, but if you are elderly, you may not be. If you're a child, you may not be able to express that you are getting irritated by that. So this is one of those things that you have to use in moderation. And it does not work in leaky room, meaning because of the high airflow, there is a lot of turbulence in your room, meaning if you have a ventilator that is open a bit more than it's supposed to, surprisingly large amount of heat will leak from there. So that it really desires a sealed room, and consequence of that, because it has sealed room, that air reactants starts to act up much more. So you get that point. Like this is the worst option. This is the cheapest option, but also the worst option. To solve that problem, people started creating oil system. So this puppy, now it solves a lot of the dry air issue, high reactivity issues, all of that, smelly issues, noisy fan issues. It solves all of that. However, it does have its own consequence. So you have to understand the energy flow. Energy goes from the same coil. Basically the coil is a bit different style. It's almost like how you have coils in your hot water heater. That kind of coil is there. It heats up oil. Now why oil? Because water boils up too quickly. If you start to dump heat in water, water will turn to steam, which will go boom. So fundamentally oil is better. Consequence, oil really does not like to exceed one certain temperature of auto ignition temperature. As long as it's below auto ignition temperature, it's good. The moment you go auto ignition, it's gonna go boom. So coil heats up the oil heats up the fin heats up the air. Now be mindful, this is convection. This is what we call passive convection. Basically hot air will rise, that's why the fins are so far apart, and it's gonna circulate, create hot air in your room. Consequence of that design is, because these things are sold as something that you can touch without burning your hand instantaneously, they inherently have a self-limiting factor into them, meaning for something that's supposed to be like, let's say this has a power rating of 1.5 kilowatt, it's supposed to be 3 times the size of this for 1.5 kilowatt continuous output, while having a surface temperature that you can touch, while the oil being inside the safe auto ignition temperature. It cannot be, it's too small for that. So consequence of that is it will shut off too quickly. So these are very expensive system, meaning compared to a coil system, you are talking about at least 2 to 3 times more expensive, and it has very low power output, meaning if you put a kilowatt meter and you start to notice that, like let's say you turn this puppy on for 10 hours, you're like, dude, the power consumption is not 10 hour equivalent, it will be like 3 hour equivalent, because it will be off most of the time. I provided a video down below of engineers who have figured like that's the serious limitation. Basically the thermal cutoff is directly attached to the body, and that's a good thing. You want the body to not heat up to a point where it's like, it's dangerous for a human to touch. But that's the issue. It's not able, like it can consume 15 kilowatts of let's say 1.5 kilowatt of electrical energy. It just can't dump 1.5 kilowatt of energy into atmosphere through passive convection. Now let's assume you have bought this. Let's assume you have enjoyed most of the features of it and you want more power out of it. All you have to do is put a fan there. That's the easiest way to get most power out of it, because these are very expensive, very low power. If you actually consume for like actually trace out the power, it's like generally 600 watt, 700 watt, basically 50% of what they are claiming. And you have to understand the heat flow out of this is very slow, and that slow part could be very frustrating. Think of this, let's say you came out of after a bath and you're like, hey dude, I need to warm up. Don't bother with that. That's how so for short duration use, these are flat out, don't even think about it. And because of that internal thermal trip, many people have bricked their system where it's like, turn it on and off quickly, because again it does not give you the power. You're like, why the heck it's not hot? That's the inherent limitation. These are basically poorly designed or practically overrated system. I mean, like if this claimed 600 watt, it's absolutely true. 600 watt continuous 24/7, don't even think about it, but not 1.5 kilowatt. So that's one of those things, and it's very slow. So if you are in a scenario where it's like you turn it on, you need the heat right now, this is really bad for that. So oil, while it does remove the basically smell part of it, the reactant part of it, the air drying out of part of that system, it does create another issue that is too goddamn slow. If you have this sort of equipment and you want more out of it, if you are happy with 600 watt continuous heat, no problem. If you want more heat out of it, like, dude, rather should I buy a bigger one? No, just have this and put a small fan. Even the smallest, quietest fan you can find, just put there, and you will be amazed how much power this can provide. If you have good airflow. If you don't have good airflow, good luck with that. So that's the oil part of it. That's why, like, many, like, the first thing you type is like, why a thermal oil heaters trip so often. Then we come to another aspect, lamp. Now, so far we have talked about convection, meaning energy carried by air. However, we are talking about radiative now. Radiative heaters simply use photons. Basically, it bypasses atmosphere. Yes, it will work in space also. So it inherently transfers energy utilizing infrared photons. So you have an element that absorbs electrical energy and creates long, medium, and short range. I'm saying basically short wave infrared. Now, be mindful, different infrared have different properties. Some may be desirable. Basically, short infrareds are generally not desirable. It does glow a little bit, and if you are talking about halogen, it glows a lot. Basically, it's wasting a lot of energy in photon visible spectrum. You don't want that. You want basically medium and long. Medium is really good for medical industry. Like, go to any physiotherapy and they will use infrared lamps. Generally, medium one. Medium can penetrate much deeper and can heat you from the inside. So it has really good physical, basically, like I will say warm capacity. Basically, you are gonna stand there, you're not gonna feel warm instantaneous, not like hot air. It's like slowly you will notice, oh, I'm feeling hot from the inside, because the medium wave can penetrate deeper. It's very cheap compared to the oil one. This is a bit more expensive than coil one, but much cheaper than the oil one. It is spot heating, so meaning if its light is pointing in that direction is gonna heat up. It has no air reaction. That is very desirable for many people. It's like, I do not want a smelly room. Awesome. And you have multiple options also, meaning that infrared, there are many ways of creating infrared. Heck, you can have a light bulb, that old incandescent light, but that inherently creates, but again, it's wasting too much energy in photons, visible spectrum wise. You don't want that. So generally you can buy halogen. Worst option, simply because it does create way too much visible spectrum, meaning the energy, if coupling efficiency is poor. Then you have quartz one, really good one, like 400 watts of quartz heater. It's really good. Like, you can have like as little as 200 watt in your leg area. Let's say you're working on a desk, 200 watts on your leg. You'll like, dude, your body is like, I got this, I can handle that. 200 watt, that's it. And then we have carbon heater, which are modern variants. Basically, it's using carbon fiber, and it has the benefit of creating all the wavelengths. Basically, it creates medium, long, and short, so everything heats up uniformly. Halogen has like a bit of a medium and short. Quartz also has medium and long kind of scenario. It does work for outdoor environment. That is one of the only heaters, electrical heaters, that can claim that. Meaning, you can have a heater like this, like Aqua generally, you will have higher power. You can have in open area, because again, it's a spot system. It bypasses the atmosphere, so photons can simply hit you and heat you without any issue. So that's the amazing aspect of it. And it also means if you have a room that is not completely sealed, or let's say you are in a big household where people are coming in and out of your main doors, again, cold air will come in, but you will still feel warm. That's another aspect, meaning people have used this in workshops, in the garages, where they have like these things on roof, and everybody's like warm. Everybody's like, I got this, no problem. That's amazing aspect of it. But because this is a spot system, it does need oscillator, meaning if you buy a large power rating one, generally they will have a way of moving the light out of it. Has to do like this, otherwise, like, wherever is heating, that part will heat up. So that's up to you. Now, if you are talking about the coupling efficiency, it can go as high as 85%. That's upper limit. Now, you may be like, what about the other percentage? Again, if you are talking about indoor room, your room is gonna heat up. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're talking about outdoor, people would have wished if it was like dumping 90 or 99% energy in infrared, but it cannot do that. It does have some conduction loss, which again, inside a room, it's a heat in your room, so you don't have to worry about it. But again, if you're thinking about outdoor use, do not expect it to be 100% efficient. It's like 85% efficient. And the visible glow is an issue. Now again, carbon one is generally preferred for that, because it has the least amount of glow compared to basically quartz one, halogen one. So it's up to you. If you don't have an issue with a bright light in your bedroom, you can use halogen. You can use quartz one, generally a very subtle glow, red glow, and it has like huge heat output. And you can use carbon heater, which has like glow more or less the similar. So this is the lamp output, meaning using radiation to heat you, specifically infrared radiation. Electrobeam did that. Now we come to the granddaddy option, the heat pump option. Now, assuming you are living in a place where the outside is not too goddamn cold. Meaning, in case of India, I'm talking about something -5 degrees Celsius. If that's the coldest you're gonna be, like basically the lowest the temperature can reach. Again, in my place, it barely reaches like 10 or 8 degrees Celsius. Like 5 degrees Celsius would be like whoa. 0 degrees Celsius would be very dangerous for us. Like again, we Indians can handle high heat. We can't. We really can't handle cold. It was like I was watching a dude who was like working in water body, and it was like 20 degrees Celsius. Man, I'm sweating here. I'm like, dude, what the hell? So you get that point. Like people are a bit different, so do not freak out too much about that. So -5 degrees Celsius, if that's the outdoor temperature, you can still use heat pump. Now AC compressor is just a heat pump. It takes heat from one point and dumps it to another point, and the only benefit of that is that it can do in reverse gradient, meaning if energy wants to come from outside inside, it can be like no, you can, it's like a reverse osmosis. It can force the another direction, and benefit of that, you can exceed 100% efficiency, meaning let's say you are talking about a big hall where you have like 5 or 6 people sleeping. Now again, you do need a lot of heat, and let's say outside is like -5 or let's say 0 degrees Celsius. You're gonna need a lot of electrical resistive heater. You are talking about like at least 2 to 3 kilowatts of energy. Again, either you can spend that electrical energy continuously, or you can pump that energy, 1.5 kilowatt energy, into your AC, and AC is going to give you 3 or 5 or even 6 kilowatts of thermal output. That's the amazing part. It exceeds 100% because it's not creating the heat, it's pumping the heat. Where is getting the heat? It's getting the heat from the outside. Now, where it's like -5 degrees, how the heck that's hot? Again, it's not hot for you and me, but it's hot for refrigerant. Refrigerant could have boiling point of -58 degrees Celsius. So do not worry about it. As long as the refrigerant can boil, it can absorb heat. So it will work, and it does work amazingly well in mild cold environments. Basically, if it's not like super Alaska level cold, it's gonna work fine. And again, be mindful, there are some companies that have made heat pumps specifically for those low temperatures, and they also work. Be mindful, they do not have like 300 or 400% high output. They only go to like 200%. But as long as you are exceeding 100%, that's awesome. And so when you are talking about like something like temperatures of like 10 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius, that's 2 or 4x more power output, meaning it will only consume 1.5 kilowatt, and it's going to give GG amounts of heat without you ever worrying about it. And you do not have to worry about any air reaction or fire hazard, because the most electrically demanding part is outside of your house, so you're safe. And does have a consequence. The consequence is a very high upfront cost, meaning compared to a normal AC, because it does have three major components. Basically, it has a two bypass valve, two expansion valve, one switchover valve that switches four-way valve. Those things do physically add cost, and not to mention you have to design the electronics, you have to design the systems and all that. So it does cost a bit of money. So it does have higher upfront cost, and especially for people who are like thinking about this in the winter, they're really in bad position, especially if they have bought something in the summer. So that's one of the side effect of it. Like it's much better long term, especially for Indians, because like again, most of us, unless you are talking about Kashmir people, we are not gonna deal with -5 degrees Celsius. That Kashmir is like almost in Himalayas. Yes, at that point we have to find some air condition that works at like -15 degrees Celsius. But for majority of India, like almost 90% of Indian population, this is more than good enough, and exceeding 100% capacity, that's awesome. But be very mindful because of the poor marketing and the fact that government did not bitch slap them. Many of the ACs that says like 5-in-1, it can do this is like, dude, is it hot and cold? Yes or no? There is no simple answer. Many times you have to do too deep into that. Thankfully, you can just look at the power rating, and power rating, there is a segment on the bottom of the AC. It says heat pump, yes or no. No simply means don't think about it, yes means buy it. So that's the whole point, heat pump. And you can find heat pumps from many manufacturers, from LG, from Samsung, from Blue Star. Almost every brand that is first party caliber, generally they have that. Be mindful, the efficiency would be bit less. If you are getting, let's say, 5-star, you may get 4-star in basically hot and cold, because that gas pressure, little bit of gas pressure is bleed into four-way switching valve. So the switch valve that is switching the compressor cycle, that is spending a little bit of gas pressure. The output energy bit less. Again, I'm pretty sure in the next 2-3 years the new ACs will be even solve that problem also. But if you look at the overall energy consumption, especially if you are dealing with serious winter or long-term winter, yeah, the little bit of inefficiencies is more than made up in the fact that you can have a pleasant winter. So this was my presentation for heaters for winters. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. I would urge you to leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.